Hi, it's Sharon Christie with Bold Women Lawyers. Let me ask you a question. Do you ever wake up and think, I don't want to go to my law practice today. I don't want to do my work as a lawyer. And do you find yourself feeling that way more often than not? Well, sometimes I talk to lawyers in solo and small firm practice, and that's exactly what they tell me. And what I've learned is one of the things that we have to look at right away is, are you in the right practice niche? Now, I say niche, other people say niche. It's like potato, potato, tomato, tomato. I say niche, but I'm going to refer to it really as practice area as we talk today. So that's one of the very first things that I want to look at with lawyers in solo and small firm practice, because that may be where your problem is. Now, I know this from experience. I've been a lawyer for a long time. I had a solo practice for 16 years, and I have been through the experience of practicing in one area, thinking that that was going to be it for me, but realizing over time that I really wasn't very happy in that area for a whole lot of reasons, and I wasn't sure what to do. I certainly didn't want to throw in the towel as a lawyer, but I did not want to keep practicing in the area at the time of personal injury. Excuse me. So what was I going to do? And I went through a process to figure out what my next step would be. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. So I think you probably know the importance of choosing a practice specialty area or niche to begin with. But, let's just review that for a moment. Because I do talk to lawyers who will tell me that they practice in 3, 4, 5, maybe more areas of law at the same time. And it sort of makes my head spin for a couple of reasons. I mean, first of all, how can you possibly keep up with all the changes in the law in that many areas and really be proficient? That alone would stop me from trying to do that many areas of practice. But it's really deeper than that, because when I talk to these lawyers and say, well, wow, why are you doing so much? It really stems from a fear that if they don't offer a lot of different types of legal services, they won't get enough clients. And I'm going to deal with that in another broadcast. We're not going to talk about that today, but I will tell you that it is really just the opposite. When you're trying to spread yourself that thin, you are making sure that you're not going to bring in enough business, because you can't stay focused on one area long enough to really build that up. But when you are focused on your practice area, of course, you develop your expertise in that area. You have a high level of confidence because you know your stuff. You know that area of law, and you know what you're doing. You are truly an expert in that area, and you're able to keep up with the changes in the law, because they can come fast and furious, as we know, and you have to be able to keep up and to adapt your practice to any changes in your particular area. You also are able to be consistent in your dealings with clients, in your messaging to clients, in your processes that you put in place in your practice, if you're focused on a specific area of law. So there's tremendous value in choosing a niche or a specialty area. Many years ago, I read a book called Riches and Niches, and it's absolutely true. So, those are the basics of, like, why do we even want to pick one, maybe two practice areas to stay focused on? But I really want to talk more about, what happens when you're really not satisfied with that area. And let's start here. Where do most people find their practice area? How did you end up in family law or in business law or in personal injury? That's where I started. How did you end up there? Well, I think for many, if not most of us, that was where our first job was. You know, you go through law school, you get out, you get a job. And depending on the market for lawyers when you graduate from law school, you may have a lot to choose from, or you may be just thrilled that you got a job somewhere and you really don't much care what the area of practice is, you have a job. But even if the choices were many when you got out of law school, the reality is when you get out, you don't know what it is to be a lawyer. You don't know what it's like to practice law in that area or any other area. You just don't know because you haven't had the experience. So you get out of law school, you get a job, you start to practice, you start to learn how to lawyer. You learn, I know for myself, like I was in litigation, what side of the courtroom do I sit on, okay? How do I take a deposition? How do I do discovery? You start learning all that. You go up a pretty steep learning curve right from the very beginning. But you work your way through it and you learn and you gain confidence, and you do reach a point after a number of years where you're saying to yourself, okay, I'm a good lawyer. I know how to be a lawyer. I know what I'm doing. But I think all too often at that point, many people, many lawyers will just keep pushing forward, pushing forward, pushing forward. And then you may be 5 years, 10 years, maybe more in your practice, like I was, when you think, you know, I've learned a lot. This has been great, but this is not really doing it for me. I'm really not happy handling these types of cases and doing this type of work. But gee, that's all I've ever done. What do I do next? Do I just stay and grind it out for the next, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 years, whatever, until I retire? Do I do that? Or can I make a change? But how do I make a change? Is that even possible? And I know those questions are what you're thinking, because that's exactly what I thought. Now, you know, when you're in solo or small firm practice, it's really, really important that you get this nailed down. And why is that? Well, because if you're in a big firm and you want to make a change, you may have many options of places within the firm that you can go. But when you're in a solo or small practice, you're limited. You're much more limited in areas of practice. And because, particularly as a solo lawyer, all of your income is dependent on the work you're doing, you may have great fear in thinking about making a change, but you can do it. And I can tell you that you can do it. Why? Because I've done it. And let me tell you just a little bit about that experience, and then we'll talk about how you can do it. I was a personal injury lawyer for many, many years, first on the defense side, then on the plaintiff side. And I was in a big firm, then I was a partner in a smaller firm, still doing all personal injury. And then the point came where I went out on my own. But I knew deep in my heart that I did not want to continue doing personal injury work. There were a lot of reasons for that, but suffice it to say that for me, it just wasn't what I call feeding my soul anymore. I had learned a lot, met a lot of great people, lawyers and clients, and I felt like I had made a difference somewhat in my clients' lives for the better. You know, I've helped them, but it just wasn't enough. It just wasn't meeting my needs. And I was fortunate that I was exposed to other areas of practice, particularly disability law. And I found that that was exactly what I wanted to do. The only problem was I had exactly zero clients, okay? But through good planning, I was able to map out a way that I would continue with the personal injury work I did while I was ramping up a disability practice, and I was able to transition from 0 disability clients to hundreds of disability clients and totally give up the personal injury side of things in less than 2 years. It was actually a little more than a year, and I was able to do that. So it is possible, but what what do you need to do? What do you need to think about? How do you figure this out? The first thing you have to be able to accept is your dissatisfaction. Okay, just admit it. Like, I've worked hard as a lawyer, but I'm really not happy doing this. Okay, that's step one. But step two is, let's find out why you're unhappy. And one of the things that I did was I got out a legal pad and a pen, and I started making a list. Personal injury. What are all the things that I found positive and that I liked doing about it and that really did, feed my soul? Negatives. What are all the things that really are making me dislike this area of practice? I just feel like I cannot do anymore. And then why? Why was I feeling that way? What was it that was making me so uncomfortable? So that was my next step. Let me look at it and see, is there a way that perhaps I just need to limit the types of personal injury cases I'm taking, for example? Would that be a solution? Would that get me to a place where I felt much more satisfied with my law practice? And for me, the answer was no, not really. That's not going to do it. But for a lot of other people, that could be the answer. Just limit the types of cases that you're taking on. So once I figured out that for me that wasn't the answer, what was the next thing I did? Well, I started making a list of other practice areas that I'd be interested in. And then I made a huge mistake, and I'll tell you what it was. At the suggestion of a very good friend and trusted advisor, I thought about, trust and estate work. I think that could be great. But what I didn't do was talk to my colleagues who are trust and estate lawyers about what is that practice all about? Tell me the good, the bad, the ugly. Let me hear from you what you think about this area of practice. I just jumped in and I started taking CLEs, and this is what I was going to do, and this was going to save me from having to do personal injury work all the time. And I even enrolled to audit a class at a local law school. And we were in, I don't know, the second, third, fourth week of the class. I don't even remember. But the professor said, okay, well, now let's start talking about the tax law implications. And my eyes got wide like they are now. And I said to myself, uh-oh, you didn't think this through at all. You hate tax law. And I did. And, my hat's off to anybody that practices in that arena. You hate it. What are you thinking? What are you doing? So I quickly backed out of that and had to regroup. And I was able then to actually talk to a friend and work with a friend of mine who handled nothing but disability cases. And it, for me, was, the magic sauce. I knew almost right away, once I got into that arena, that, oh yeah, this is really what I want to do, what I need to do, and I'm all in on this area of practice. So I did it the right way the second time around. So that's the next thing you want to do. Talk to people that you know that are in areas of practice that you're thinking maybe this would be a good fit for me. And once you make the decision, then you need to start working on your plan, because it is not a good plan to just suddenly tomorrow stop taking the types of cases you're taking now and try to ramp up immediately in a new area of practice. It does take time, and you have to be prepared for that. But you can begin laying out a plan and then working that plan, implementing that plan, so that you can go from practice area A 100% to practice area A 50% and practice area B now being added at 50%, and then move on until you have the right mix. Or if you want to change completely like I did to 100% different area of law, you can do that too. But you need a plan. Don't try to just cut off one area and and go all in on another area, unless honestly you're independently wealthy or have a whole nother source of income that can keep your law firm afloat while that happens. But it's very doable. I want you to know it's very doable. You will not regret it if you do the right investigation to begin with and the right planning. And sometimes, when I have these conversations with lawyers, sometimes once we work through the good, the bad, and the ugly of what they're currently doing, the realization comes that, it's really not as bad as I have let myself believe and feel, and I can make some adjustments that will keep me in my current area of practice, but keep me much happier. So there's lots of ways you can deal with high levels of dissatisfaction with a law practice. I've given you a few tips. I hope for you that if you're in that situation, I hope you find these tips helpful. And just remember, you are not stuck where you are. You can always make changes. You can do it very successfully and be very happy in your law practice. Thanks for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you the next time.